The static hit like a slap across the world's collective face. Radios, televisions, and devices all hissed, groaned, then unified in a screech that tore through cities and minds alike. A voice followed, deep, inhuman, yet disturbingly calm. "They're already here." The world didn't breathe. Then, panic. People screamed, power grids flickered, news anchors froze mid-sentence. Somewhere in the noise, someone whispered, "This isn't a test." The sky churned. Planes dropped off radar. Satellites blinked out. The protagonist, Vance, a 33-year-old man with tired eyes and a haunted face, stood still in his kitchen as the lights overhead surged and burst. His coffee cup shattered. That voice hadn't just spoken to the world. It had spoken to him. Lucas whispered, "What do you mean, here?" But inside, he already knew. The message wasn't alien to him. It was familiar. His heart pounded as fragments of memories he didn't recognize clawed their way forward. Across the planet, governments scrambled, issuing press blackouts and martial law. But it was too late. The voice repeated, now louder, "We've been waiting for you." The words weren't a threat. They were a promise. Lucas dropped to his knees, shaking, his face lit by the flickering glow of static-filled screens. And then, the skies lit up with unnatural light. Vance sat motionless, the chaos outside muted by the sudden numbness in his mind. The words weren't just spoken, they were remembered. He blinked hard, trying to fight back something. An image, a name, something just on the edge of awareness. Every device in his apartment had shorted out, but the voice echoed within him, unrelenting. Outside, sirens wailed. On the street, people were running, shouting, grasping at loved ones. But Lucas stayed still. He remembered his father's voice, soft, distant, years ago, warning him about this. Something about a signal. Something about blood. He had dismissed it then as a dying man's delusion. But now, here it was. Real doll. Lucas stood slowly, shards crunching underfoot. His reflection in the broken glass stared back at him, and for a moment, it didn't look like him at all. Somewhere out there, the world was ending. But inside Lucas, something was waking up. Emergency broadcasts failed to soothe the public. Reports contradicted each other. Official statements spoke of weather anomalies, but everyone knew the truth couldn't be hidden anymore. Lucas wandered the streets in a daze, watching the unraveling of order. Police barricades crumbled under desperate crowds. Parents screamed for children. And overhead the sky never stopped pulsing, dim, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Lucas clutched a folded piece of paper, old, weathered. His father had given it to him before he died. He had never opened it. Until now. Inside were strange symbols, impossible sketches of circular formations, and a single phrase, "When they speak, listen with your blood." Lucas stared at it, shivering. A woman bumped into him, shouted something, then vanished into the crowd. He barely noticed. The symbols burned into his memory. The voice wasn't done. Not yet. In a fortified bunker far from the city, military analysts stared at signal readouts in disbelief. One tapped a monitor. "It's not a message," she said. "It's a trigger." In the next room, a general muttered, "God help us." They didn't understand it, but something in the signal had activated dormant codes buried in global systems. Across continents, ancient underground facilities powered up for the first time. In one of them, under miles of rock and secrecy, something massive began to stir. Lucas couldn't see it, but he felt it. A vibration under his skin. A tone beneath hearing. He staggered as if punched. On the paper, the symbols began to make sense. Something inside him clicked. The aliens weren't invading. They were activating. That night, Lucas didn't sleep. He sat in silence, staring at the paper, replaying the message in his head. He couldn't stop hearing it. Over and over. "We've been waiting for you." He reached for a photo of his father, taken before the sickness took him. "What did you know?" he whispered. In the distance, Another pulse lit the horizon. Something was coming. Closer. He could feel it. It wasn't fear that kept him awake. It was the terrifying familiarity of what was unfolding. This wasn't new. This was inevitable. Lucas Vance walked alone through the ruins of his neighborhood. The morning light revealed what the night had hidden: shattered glass, collapsed roofs, and faces that had cried through the darkness. People huddled in doorways, clutching radios and rumors. The government said nothing. Every screen still displayed static or the looping emergency signal. Lucas could hear the pulse now, not just in the sky but in his blood. A deep throb beneath everything. He remembered his father's funeral. The one time he'd seen his father cry was during a documentary on Voyager's golden record. He had whispered, "We invited them." That memory now screamed inside Lucas. He paused by a burned-out car, catching his reflection in the warped metal. There was something in his eyes now, certainty mixed with dread. He wasn't like the others. Not anymore. A child nearby coughed violently, and Lucas looked at the mother holding her. Their eyes met. She knew, somehow, that he was changing. That whatever was happening to the world had already started inside him. Lucas returned to his childhood home, drawn by instincts he couldn't explain. The old house hadn't changed in years. Dust lay thick across furniture, and the air smelled of time and silence. In the attic, he found boxes of his father's things: papers, notebooks, VHS tapes labeled "Watch When It Begins." With trembling hands, Lucas inserted one into the dusty player. The image flickered, his father younger, seated at a desk. "If you're seeing this, then they've come. And you've started hearing it, haven't you?" Lucas froze. His father's voice was steady, resigned. "They're not invaders. They're architects. And you, Lucas, you're part of the design." Lucas couldn't breathe. He reached out toward the screen, as if to touch the past. "We tried to keep it from you, but blood remembers, and now it's waking up." The tape cut to static. Lucas collapsed to the floor, heart racing, mind fractured. Nothing in his life had prepared him for this. The sun dipped behind clouds as Lucas buried himself in his father's notebooks. Symbols repeated again and again: spirals, geometric forms, coordinates. One page bore a phrase written over and over: "Listen through the pulse." He touched the page, and a high-pitched frequency surged into his ears. His vision blurred. Images, not memories, flooded in. Cities not on Earth, constellations he didn't know. Alien faces that looked like his own. He gasped and pulled back, dizzy. The notebooks weren't just research. They were instructions. Lucas realized that his father hadn't been documenting something. He'd been trying to stop something. Lucas walked to the window and looked out at the street. A man in a black coat watched him from the sidewalk, unmoving. Their eyes met, and Lucas felt something cold slide down his spine. The man wasn't just watching. He was waiting. Lucas confronted the man in black. "Who are you?" he demanded, but the man just smiled. "You already know," he said. His voice echoed, not in the air, but inside Lucas' skull. "We've watched over your bloodline for centuries." Lucas backed away. "Why me?" The man stepped forward. "You were built for this. You're a bridge, Lucas, between what is human and what must come." Lucas felt his pulse quicken, skin clammy. The man turned to leave, whispering, "Follow the coordinates in the notebook. The answer is there, but so is the end." Before Lucas could react, the man was gone, vanished into empty air. Not walked, not run, just gone. Lucas stood trembling, notebook clutched in his hand. A decision loomed. He could walk away and live in fear, or he could go to the edge of the world and meet the truth face to face. Lucas packed a single bag. Notebook. Tape. Byte. Wound. Photo. Coordinates etched into his mind like a brand. Outside, helicopters thudded across the sky. Martial law was official now. He heard gunshots somewhere in the distance. The world was unraveling. He left the house for the last time. At the edge of the property, he turned, staring at the building that had shaped him. Then he walked away, step by step, into the unknown. As he reached the edge of town, he passed people staring up at the sky, mouths open in awe or fear. The clouds were parting, and from beyond, something vast shifted above them. Not fully seen, but known. Lucas didn't look up. He just kept walking. The pulse in his blood grew louder. And within that pulse, a voice whispered again, "We've been waiting for you." Lucas followed the coordinates deep into the Nevada desert. What he found wasn't marked on any map. A forgotten military complex buried beneath red rock and sand. The entrance was sealed, but the notebook responded to a panel near the cliff wall. A hidden door groaned open. Inside, stale air greeted him with the scent of metal and time. The halls were lined with alien glyphs, pulsing faintly with light. Lucas moved slowly, every step echoing like thunder. Deeper in, screens flickered on with biometric scans. They knew him. "Welcome back, Lucas Vance," a synthetic voice said. He staggered. He had never been here. Or had he? The complex wasn't abandoned, it was asleep. And now, it was waking up for him. A console revealed files dated decades before his birth. Footage played of humans working with something not human. The final frame showed a symbol from his notebook, burned into the wall. Beneath it, Project Gateway. Lucas whispered, "What the hell is this place?" Inside a control room, Lucas studied the monitors. Footage played of men in black uniforms, human scientists and non-human beings working side by side. "They gave us everything," one recorded voice said. "Energy, tech, guidance. All they asked for was secrecy." The files revealed a deal made long ago, an alien alliance hidden from the world. But it wasn't unity. It was manipulation. The aliens hadn't come to help. They had come to prepare. Lucas felt sick. These weren't invaders. They had been here for generations, steering humanity toward a future no one consented to. Worse, the government had known. High-ranking officials were listed in the logs. "Humanity's survival depends on compliance," a transcript read. Lucas backed away from the terminal. This wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was reality. They had never been alone. And now, he wasn't sure who the real enemy was. Lucas's thoughts raced. He stepped into another chamber, circular stone, older than the complex itself. At its center stood a tall pedestal with a spherical device suspended in an energy field. As he approached, the sphere reacted, floating higher, glowing brighter. Then a voice spoke behind him. "I didn't think you'd make it this far." Lucas turned sharply. It was her, Elara Winters, once his closest ally. She had vanished years ago. "You lied to me," Lucas said. Elara smiled, but her eyes glowed faintly. Unnatural. "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you who I really am." Her voice distorted. Her form shimmered slightly, a flicker of something not quite human. "You think I don't remember?" she hissed. Lucas' heart dropped. "You're one of them." Elara nodded. "I always was. And so were you. But you forgot." The betrayal cut deeper than anything before. Lucas backed away from Elara, fists clenched. "You used me," he said. She stepped forward. "No, I guided you. You were lost before I arrived." The orb pulsed brighter between them. "You still don't understand," she continued. "You were created for this. You were part of the plan from the beginning." Lucas shouted, "I didn't choose this." Her expression turned hard. "None of us did." The room shook. The orb cracked open like a shell, revealing a spiraling fragment of light, a map encoded in energy. Elara turned away. "You can follow it, or you can die here with your denial." Lucas stared at the fragment. Something inside it called to him. A memory not his. A world not Earth. Elara vanished in a shimmer of light, leaving Lucas alone in the echoing chamber with the truth vibrating in the air around him. Lucas emerged from the complex into the desert night, the orb fragment stored in his pack, still glowing faintly. The stars above seemed different now, closer. He collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by betrayal, by the truth. His father had known. Elara had lied. The government had sold humanity's future. And yet, through all the horror, a purpose was forming. Lucas wasn't a pawn. He was a link. If he could decode the map, maybe he could find the source. Maybe he could stop whatever was coming next. But the cost had already begun. His old life was gone. His trust was shattered. And the thing waking inside him, whatever it was no longer silent. It whispered promises. Lucas looked toward the horizon, the desert winds howling. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. No answer came. Only the pulse, steady, cold, inevitable. Lucas crossed state lines by foot and train, following the orb's silent guidance. It led him to an abandoned research outpost in Montana, buried in forest and fog. Inside, he found rusted terminals, broken glass, and records preserved beneath decades of dust. The logbooks bore strange stamps, military clearance alongside symbols he now recognized as alien. He sat at the last functioning terminal and powered it up. To his shock, it worked. A video feed opened. Footage of surgeries, injections, genetic splicing. Children died. One was labeled, Subject LV, approved for integration. His hands shook. "They did this to me," he whispered. A clinician's voice narrated in the background. Subject unaware of genetic fusion. Target timeline. Adulthood awakening. Lucas reeled, bile rising in his throat. He wasn't just a descendant. He was a prototype. Engineered. His whole life had been a test, one he never agreed to take. Lucas drove a stolen truck deeper into isolation. The further he went, the more interference the orb emitted, rising in pitch, rattling the vehicle's frame. He stopped by a remote river bend. There, embedded in the cliffside, was another facility, this one active. Its design wasn't human. Smooth, seamless metal curved unnaturally into the stone. A door opened silently as he approached. Inside, the air was sterile, glowing, humming. It felt like being inside a living organism. Screens displayed holographic diagrams of the human nervous system, overlaid with alien tech. This was where they learned how to shape the mind. Lucas wandered into a circular chamber, where a holographic globe hovered above a pedestal. Red lines marked hundreds of locations around the Earth. "These are sites," he murmured. "Like me." A realization dawned. He wasn't the only one. There were others. Activated or asleep. Watching or being watched. The globe began to rotate, zeroing in on one location. A vast network under Antarctica. Lucas reached toward the projection, and it shifted, revealing a buried city of unimaginable scale. Then came the voice, this time from within. "It's time," Lucas screamed, clutching his head. His vision warped. He stood no longer in the facility, but on a frozen plain, towering spires breaking through ice beneath an alien sky. Then, it snapped back. He fell to his knees, gasping. A psychic transmission. A memory, but not his own. His body wasn't just reacting. It was sensing. The orb pulsed again. A countdown began on the holographic screen, 2 days. That's when the network would fully activate. Lucas staggered to his feet, trembling. He wasn't just caught in the middle. He was the trigger. "If I don't stop this, the whole world becomes like me," he muttered. And that might be the point. Lucas accessed the final files. They weren't military logs. They were personal journals. Dozens of entries from people like him, born into quiet lives, only to awaken to something else. Some resisted. Others vanished. A few embraced it. The journal entries were chilling. "They gave me a choice," one read. "And I chose evolution." Another showed a photo, Elara, smiling among them, years before she vanished. Lucas's hands trembled. These people had been selected, studied, and ultimately recruited. Some were dead. Others were now leaders. Of corporations, nations, religions, all connected, all altered. Lucas realized this wasn't invasion. It was infiltration. The world was already theirs. The illusion of humanity's independence had never existed. He stared at the final entry. The last to awaken is the catalyst. He will unlock the gate. Lucas swallowed hard. He was the last. And he now had one decision left. Lucas stood at the cliff's edge, the facility behind him sealed once more. The orb pulsed steadily in his chest. It had become part of him now. He stared at the sky, which seemed to ripple, shimmer, as if waiting for his choice. Below, the world continued unaware. Cities buzzed. People moved on with their lives. But Lucas knew their fate teetered on the edge. If he destroyed the orb, he might end the connection. But it might kill him. If he activated the gate, he'd complete the plan and usher in a world no longer human. The words from the journal echoed. He will unlock the gate. A tear rolled down his cheek. I didn't ask for this, he whispered. The wind roared in response. Behind his eyes, visions pulsed, alternate futures, all bleeding from the same choice. As he stepped forward into the wind, his face steeled. Whatever happened next, he would decide it. Not them. Lucas arrived at the ruins of a Cold War observatory buried in the Rockies, a site marked in the orb's final projection. The entrance was half collapsed, overtaken by trees and time. He climbed through rubble, heart pounding. Inside, it was strangely intact. Beneath the observatory was a chamber untouched by decay, lit from within by a golden glow. In the center stood a monolithic obelisk, covered in alien symbols that pulsed in response to his presence. As he stepped closer, his skin began to hum. The obelisk responded. Lines of energy crawled across it, revealing a hidden panel. He placed his hand against it. The air cracked. A burst of data, of memories, flooded him, not just his, but ancestral ones. Faces he didn't know. Voices from centuries past. You were never meant to be unaware, said a voice deep within the light. You are the last of your line, the anchor. Lucas collapsed. It was no longer a question. His bloodline was the key. When Lucas woke, hours had passed. Around him, the obelisk stood silent once more, but something inside him had changed. His memories were clearer, sharpened by data he'd never lived but now somehow owned. He saw his father speaking to strangers under a red sky. He saw his grandfather inside a hidden chamber, injecting himself with light. Each generation had been a part of the program. And now, it ended with him. The orb pulsed at his side. It no longer guided, it waited. Lucas opened a compartment on the obelisk and pulled out a metallic core, inscribed with the same glyph burned into his father's notes. It pulsed once, then darkened. This was the key to the gate. You knew all along, he muttered aloud. You prepared me for this. His voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me? But there was no answer, only silence. And the certainty that the final path was near. Outside, the world boiled. Riots flared across cities as the alien sky pulses grew more visible, undeniable. Governments fell silent. Satellites went dark. Lucas saw the reports on a cracked radio screen at a diner as he passed through a ghost town. People knew now. Not everything, but enough to be afraid. The sky's breathing, said one voice over the airwaves. And it's counting down. Lucas didn't stop. He moved like a man who had accepted something deeper than fear. At a gas station, he met an old man who simply stared at him and nodded. You're the end and the beginning, the man said, then walked away. Lucas said nothing. He drove onward toward the gate's coordinates, deep within the Arctic Circle. As the landscape shifted into ice and silence, Lucas began to feel time unraveling around him. The lines between past, present, and future were gone. Only purpose remained. Lucas reached the Arctic outpost as the final aurora lit the sky in unnatural patterns. The gate was real, a construct older than any human civilization, carved into a glacier's heart. Its entrance was open, waiting. Inside, walls of frozen light shimmered like glass. Lucas walked the corridor, alone, carrying the core. At the center was a platform and a structure shaped like a star, angular, elegant, alive. He placed the core into the socket. The chamber rumbled. Light poured from the walls. Voices filled the air, not speech but presence. The gate began to awaken. Lucas looked into the heart of it and saw himself. Not just one version, but many. Lives unlived. Timelines untouched. A spiral of possibilities. Choose, a voice echoed. Only one path will survive. Lucas stepped forward. Whatever choice he made now, it would define the future of the species. The gate pulsed with life. Lucas stood on the threshold, one final breath caught between realities. Before him unfolded a cascade of futures, one where humanity merged, one where it fractured, and one where it was wiped clean. He remembered Elara's words. "You're the bridge." He had never wanted this. But maybe that's why it had to be him. Because power should never crave itself. He reached toward the interface. "I choose truth," he whispered. Light consumed him. Not pain, not death. Revelation. Done. His form dissolved into patterns, no longer flesh, but data, memory, possibility. Across Earth, pulses stopped. Skies cleared. For a moment, humanity stood at peace. Then came a whisper. Not alien, not machine, but Lucas. "It's not the end. It's just the first door." And far beyond Earth, something stirred in reply. Lucas returned to consciousness in a world changed. He awoke in a hospital surrounded by machines, silent, unplugged, lifeless. No doctors. No power. Only silence. The city outside looked untouched, but the air hummed unnaturally. As he stepped outside, people gathered, staring up at the sky, their expressions blank. They weren't afraid. They were listening. Something had changed in them too. The transmission, the one he had triggered, was still active, but now it moved through people like an unseen current. Lucas moved among them, unseen, until a voice behind him said, "They know who you are." He turned to find Elara, unchanged. "You opened the gate. Now they wait for your decision." Lucas's chest still glowed faintly. "I didn't finish it," he said. She shook her head. "You became it." That moment, the fusion, had made him more than human. But also, something less. "You have hours," she said, "before the final protocol completes." Lucas followed Elara through empty streets into an underground complex beneath the city, a fusion of human and alien design. "This was built decades ago," she said, "by those who knew this day would come." The halls were pulsing now, alive, responsive to Lucas's presence. Screens displayed countdowns. Symbols pulsed across the walls. "This is the interface," she said. "When it hits 0, Earth connects to the larger network. You can stop it, or let it evolve." Lucas clenched his fists. "And what happens if I let it happen?" She looked away. "You lose everything. Language, borders, identity. Fear, hate. You lose what makes you human. But maybe that's the point. The truth wasn't just a burden. It was a weapon." Lucas realized the network didn't force change. It offered it. And humanity would either choose to rise, or collapse under the weight of truth. Lucas accessed the central console. It didn't have buttons, just contact. As his hand hovered, it reacted, scanning him, sensing. Memories not his flooded in, billions of lives across galaxies, every species that had made the choice before Earth. Some thrived. Others vanished. One stood out, a race that had merged with the network, gained peace, then lost all sense of self. Lucas stepped back, gasping. They became shadows, he said. Elara didn't deny it. It's not an evolution, it's an unmaking, but it ends war. It ends suffering. Lucas stared into the pulsing core of the interface. It ends everything. He turned to Elara. Why didn't you stop me? She lowered her eyes. Because I hoped you'd be stronger than I was. Lucas knew now. This was the final step. The transformation wasn't forced. It was chosen. And he still had time to walk away. Above ground, the sky split open. A rift, not physical but perceptual, revealed something vast beyond Earth. A collective consciousness stared down, waiting. Lucas stood atop the building, wind tearing at his coat. Cities were awakening. Around the globe, people fell to their knees, overwhelmed by visions, by memory, by truth. No more denial. Lucas clutched the orb in his hands. It had dimmed, waiting for his will. Fate was not just a device. It was a mirror. What humanity saw in it would decide whether they survived it. If I do nothing, they'll be changed, he whispered. If I shut it down, we stay broken. His thoughts raced. The burden was too big for one person. Yet he was the only one who could carry it. He looked to Elara, standing behind him. What did you see when you looked into it? She hesitated. I saw who I could have been, if I'd chosen differently. The final seconds ticked away. Lucas stared at the console, his hand hovering. Behind him, Elara whispered, It's yours now. Time seemed to stretch. The orb pulsed, slow and calm. We could be more, Lucas said. Or we could lose ourselves. He saw his father's face, his mother's touch, the faces of those who'd tried to shield him. He didn't feel divine. He felt terrified. Yet he understood. True change was never clean. Lucas lowered his hand. Not yet, he said. The countdown paused. He'd suspended the activation. Around the world, the pulse halted. The light dimmed. The gate went silent. Lucas turned, exhausted. Elara's eyes widened. You stopped it? He nodded. I delayed it. Humanity gets one more chance to choose for itself. The cost was unknown. The damage had already begun. But for the first time, Lucas felt human again. And the stars, now watching, waited. The world did not end. But neither did it return to what it was. Days passed in strange quiet. The skies no longer pulsed, yet their memory lingered in every glance upward. People whispered of the light, of the voice, of the choice no one remembered making. Governments scrambled to explain, but truth had slipped beyond containment. Lucas walked among the remnants, unseen, unknown. The orb, now dark, remained sealed in a steel case at his side. He'd shut the gate, but the door still existed. The network slept, not gone, only waiting. He passed crowds praying beneath open skies. He saw activists screaming for answers, others begging for silence. He heard a child whisper, I remember the stars inside me. Lucas kept walking. He had no answers, only a soul heavy with what almost was. Peace wasn't victory. It was pause. And sometimes pauses were all humanity could earn. For now, Lucas stopped in a desert town, one of those places untouched by time, yet now filled with the memory of cosmic awe. He sat in a diner booth, alone, stirring black coffee, gone cold. A radio played low static in the background. Elara entered, uninvited, sitting across from him like they had done this for years. You did it, she said. You made a choice. Lucas looked up. I delayed it. That's not the same as saving anyone. Elara shrugged. Maybe not, but you gave them a chance to be ready. That's more than we ever had. Lucas studied her face, trying to see the alien beneath the human. He saw both. And maybe that's what they all were now, something in between. She slid a file across the table. There are others, like you, still sleeping. Lucas didn't open it. Not yet, he said. I need to remember how to breathe first. News footage played silently in the background of the diner. World leaders addressing the unexplained event, scientists arguing, cults rising, skeptics raging. Lucas barely watched. He knew what they were saying. The same thing said before every great shift, well, control it. But control was a myth. Elara stood to leave. We'll be watching. When the network stirs again, you'll know. Lucas didn't answer. He stared into the coffee, seeing the stars reflected faintly in the liquid. After she left, he opened the folder. Inside were names, photos, coordinates, sleepers, beacons, diet, children. He traced one photo. An 8-year-old girl in India with glowing eyes. Too soon, he whispered. He closed the file. He knew he'd answer the call again. But not yet. First, he needed to live. To find meaning in the world he'd almost erased. Lucas walked into the desert under a full moon. No destination in mind. The air was still. Stars stretched across the sky like ancient questions. He sat atop a rocky ledge and looked up. The silence was different now. He felt the network watching, not through machines, but through time, through memory. His body still pulsed faintly with residual code. He wasn't fully disconnected. He never would be. That was the price of being the bridge. He pulled the orb from the case, now dull and heavy, and held it to the moonlight. What comes next? He asked. No voice replied. But something stirred beneath the silence. A slow resonance, like a breath drawn somewhere in the dark. Lucas understood. This story wasn't over. This was only intermission. The next act would come. Not in days or years, but when the stars chose. And when it did, he would answer. Because he already had. The final scene is quiet. No fanfare. Lucas walks down a long empty road at sunrise. The orb sealed again in its case. The horizon is endless, but he moves with purpose. Somewhere in the distance, the network stirs. Satellites flicker. Signals distort. Children dream of symbols. And somewhere far from Earth, a structure like the gate turns. Slowly. Lucas doesn't speak. He just walks one step after another. He isn't healed. He isn't free. But he is aware. And that awareness is its own kind of evolution. A voice echoes, not loud, not clear, just enough to carry across galaxies. The truth has a price, it says. Lucas stops briefly, then keeps walking. And the stars, one by one, begin to shift. Not randomly. Not passively, deliberately, and the gate, far beyond Earth, begins to open again.